Because they're emblematic for some of the greatest challenges we face at the moment. We still live in a world of great inequality, and particularly also between men and women, not being paid the same for the jobs they do, access to the kind of infrastructure that allows you to be a successful entrepreneur. Peace, on the other hand, because we live in a moment in time where we have more conflicts and more displaced people, whether refugees or internally displaced people, than at any point since 1945. Artificial intelligence, because we are yet again at a point where technology can be a very transformative driver.
What would you say that are the key hurdles that might prevent you from reaching all of those goals?
Maybe the simplest way to describe it is that we see a tendency at the moment where, partly out of the uncertainty about the future, there is an increasing tendency to turn inwards. What used to be our neighbors are more often now our enemies. What used to be our partners are now our competitors. And yet we live in a 21st century global economy and also geopolitical reality where we depend on one another more than ever before. Not just in philosophical terms, but actually in very practical terms. COVID was a brutal reminder with the pandemic. Technology, we can have the most extraordinary digital economy and artificial intelligence, but if countries are not legislating and putting the right institutional capacities in place to deal with cybercrime, cyber terrorism, it could become an extraordinary threat to our safety.
You recently made your first trip to China since the pandemic. China has led the world in poverty reduction over the past decade. So what did you take from your visit?
I think, first of all, China has had to also make many short-term policy decisions to deal with the pandemic, the consequence of the pandemic, the shocks to international markets. And I think what was very interesting was to see how, by the end of 2024, a series of these public policy measures had worked relatively well. And China's economy, again achieved a 5% plus growth rate last year. So it is, in a sense, back on track from the point of view of having been severely disrupted. Perhaps beyond the extraordinary journey in terms of poverty eradication that China has accomplished over the last 3 to 4 decades, perhaps the most interesting thing to watch over the coming years is China perhaps one of the first economies in the world that has taken the green economy paradigm, these transitions and transformations, genuinely as the driver of the future economy of China.